Hello, how are you doing? I just checked that the sound's working okay, unlike last time when I was talking and no one could hear me. So I just checked the sound's okay once it starts. Hi. It's a little bit behind yet. It's about 10 seconds behind, maybe 20 seconds, something like that. There we go. And yeah, it's working. Good. All right, so welcome back. Wednesday evening, it's time to revise your GCSE, IGCSE, computer science. So we're just going to carry on with the paper that we were doing last time. Hi everybody. And yeah, we're going to continue on. It's the March 2023 paper 2. And we just finished doing the paper on, the question on logic gates. So, oh, my hair looks a bit strange there. It's like cut in. Right, so anyway, let's enough about my hair. Let's continue with the paper. So let's put that on. And yeah, we're going to look at the next question in the paper, which is that's what we did last time. So back on Thursday, we did the logic gates question. We're going to do the question on the trace table, So if you don't have this, don't worry, just look at the screen as much as you can and we will, hi everybody, yeah, hi. This is quite a nice little one, quite a nice sort of flow chart for a trace table. So I've set it up here already. And yeah, trace tables. So if you need to go and get a piece of paper and you can just sort of draw the grid here, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put this on the whiteboard in a moment. But I think it's a good idea to try and get you to do this before I do any of it. So just look at the screen here. We've got a flowchart. I'll just give you a few bit of directions. And the directions are, follow the flowchart, obey the flowchart. Don't think that you know what the flowchart's doing, because they might sneak in something in the question that makes it look really easy and then actually there's something that is a bit odd about it. And also, yeah, just obey the flowchart and fill in the trace table only when there is an arrow which is setting a variable. So like this bit here, we've got number of sales is 0, total is 0, or we have an input, and your input values, so for example this one here, the input values are all input separately from the data here. So I'm just going to go quiet for a few minutes just to see if you can try and do this, and then I will come back to you. And if you need to go and get pen and paper, go and do it and just draw the grid. Someone's asked, what's the rule for the blank bits? You tried to do some questions and you filled up all the spaces. That's absolutely fine to do that. So really what they're just after you changing the values where they should change. And if you copy down the previous values instead of leaving it blank, that's absolutely fine. And I'll show you the different ways that you can do that. In the mark scheme, they are not they're not consistent as to when they leave blanks or not, but they won't mark you down if you copy them. Okay, so try this question and see how you get on, and I'll go through it in a moment. So yeah, so I am still here. So someone's asked, any advice for paper one in general? I mean, most of paper one is obviously learning stuff off by heart rather than applying your skills in programming or around programming. So I would just say make sure you go over the material as much as possible so that you can learn it. And actually most of the stuff in the paper one is very handy for a computing career. So, you know, it is a good thing to sort of learn anyway. Just keep at it and remember that with your mocks, you've still got sort of 3 months after your mocks to try and work on any areas that you need work on. But also, I would say, yeah, don't worry about getting a really high mark in your mock. Usually what happens is people will get either the same or at least 1 grade higher, if not more, after their mock. So you're not trying to, you know, get a grade 9, you're just trying to get practice with the exam situation, practicing the exam, and just trying to learn as much as possible. Yeah, just do your best and keep at it. And this is good to start really early now. So well done for turning up for this, because this is one of the best things that you can do is to turn up for these, and you'll see that they do repeat a lot of areas in the papers. So yeah. The whole point of a mock is that it means absolutely nothing for your actual grade. Well, that is true, but that is the point of it. But it's to help you see what it's like to do a real exam in a time frame. Help you if you're going to your exam centre, get used to it, because it is really nerve-wracking. Even if you know you're going to ace the exam, it is still nerve-wracking. So yeah, it's all about practice. Okay, so let's go through this then. I'm going to put this onto this whiteboard, otherwise I won't be able to write on it. So I'll just put in here and over here too. And then we can have a look at this one. So yeah, this is quite a nice, easy one actually. Some of them can be a bit of a pain to do, some of them. And yeah, so this one's not too bad. It's quite a straightforward one. So this flowchart represents an algorithm to find the average value of a number of cells. And I mentioned in live lessons that, you know, doing the average, totaling, counting, etc. Very, very common questions. So it's really important to get to grips with that sort of thing. I can't actually see part of this. Half of my struggle is this. The struggle is real, people. Is to try and get this all on one screenshot with it actually fitting, so that you can read it too. I'll just leave the output bit kind of small there because we're not going to need that until right at the end anyway. Okay, so we're going to obey the flowchart and we're going to follow it through. So we start at the start. Just make that a bit thicker. Start at the start. Don't forget to do the initial values. So many people keep forgetting to do this. We must put it in because they give marks by the column. And if you don't put these initial values in, you've automatically lost a mark for each column. So always put that in. We've got number of cells is 0, total is 0. Remember that when we're doing our trace table, we only write on the trace table if they're setting a variable with the arrow or we use input. Obviously the output column is slightly different as well, but because that's outputting, but changing the variables, and that's the whole point of a trace table, is we're tracking what and how variables change. Anyway, we're at the next one here, an input cell value, which is 5.5. So our first value goes in, cell value. Now, they've got, in the mark scheme, they've got this on a different line. So yeah, I would probably, they are inconsistent with the way that they write the mark schemes. They've got this on the next line in the mark scheme. I'll copy them, but initially I would probably have put it here and I would have probably put it there, but yeah, they are a little bit strange sometimes to follow. Anyway, £5.50 is our sale. Our sale value is a sale value equal to 0. No, it's 5.5. So we follow on here with this one. Number of sales equals the number of sales plus 1. So we put a 1 here. And then total equals total plus the sale value. So we put 5.5 here, 5.5 over there. We follow it around and we input the net sale value, which is £3.40. So we put that in here, £3.40. So that's that one there. Is the sale value equal to 0? No, it isn't. So we add 1 on, so that's now 2. And we add total and the sale value together. So that is 0. 5 and 4 is 9. And then we've got 3 and 5, which is 8. So it's £8.90. Would it be fine if you put it at the top? Yeah, it should be fine. So yeah, they are, like I said, they're inconsistent with this. So if you put it there, I would have put it there. That would be fine because it's changing in the right place. That's all they're really looking for. And I have had previous people who've been marking exams for this exam board, and they said that's all they're looking for, is it changed in the right place. Okay, next is we've done that bit. We're going to follow it around again and we input the net sales value, which is 6.25. That's the wrong column. 6.25, and the sales value isn't 0, so we go down here. Number of sales equals number of sales plus 1, so that's 3. And then we add that onto the total, so that is 890 plus 625, so that is 5, 9, 10, 11, so that's a 1. And then we've got 8 plus 6 is 15. So that is £15.15. We move around again. You can see this, remember that the loop going up against that's the main flow of a flow chart, goes down, but if we're going against it, it's a loop. So that's our arrow here going against it. And then we do the net sales value, which is 385. So I add that in there. 385. And then we're going to add that on. Add 1 on here, so that's 4. Then add 1 on, which is we've got 5 plus 5, which is 0. 8 plus 1 is 15 plus 385, 8, 9. So I'm pausing here because I'm just checking my mark. So I'm checking what I'm putting in here, and I think there's an error in the mark scheme. I think there's an error in the mark scheme. Let me just check this. So I'm just checking this. They've got 1515 plus 385. Which is 19. Oh no, it isn't. It's me. I just can't add up. Okay, this is why I check it. It's 19 altogether. Loop around again. Enter the net sales value, which is minus 11. So it's a refund. It's a refund. Minus 11. So 19. Minus 11 is, that's a 5, and then this one, it will be 8. And that's 8.0. We loop around again, and we get to the next one, which is 0. So we still have to put that in. So we still put the 0 here. And then it says, is the sales value 0? Yes, it is. So we're going to go here. Average equals, so we're now on the average one here, equals the total, which is 8, divided by the number of sales, which is 5. So what is 8 divided by 5? It is 1.6. Then we go to this one here and we output the average sale value. And your handwriting is going to be much neater than mine. And then average sale value, average 1.6. Okay. All right, so that is the trace table. I'll just quickly show you the mark scheme for that. It's here somewhere. There we go. Yeah, there we go. There's the mark scheme. There is another question for this, but you can see there it says 1 mark for each column, number of sales, total sale value. So if you don't put those 2 initial values, then you will lose a mark for each one. So it is really important. That's why I keep going on about it, because you don't want to lose 2 marks for doing that. Okay, next question then is to do with this, but it's just another thing to do with the algorithm. So if we have a look, it says, identify the error in the algorithm and describe how to correct it. So can anybody spot an error in this algorithm? What do you think might be the error? Now this is quite hard, so I don't know, to be honest, I don't know whether or not I would have put something. I don't even know if I would have got this. This is a really tough question. And actually, looking at the mark scheme, then they're quite vague. So if you can find an error that isn't in their list, they've only got 1. See what you think. Yeah, so basically, don't worry if you can't get this. It says it doesn't handle negative values. So it doesn't handle negative values in this here, even though there is a negative value as a piece of data. So yeah, it's a negative input value. So we need to have something to sort of say you can't have a negative value, because a sale is different to a refund. A refund isn't a sale, it's a refund, funnily enough. So yeah, so basically, we're basically thinking that we need to have some kind of check that it's a positive number when we input it here in the input bit here. Yeah. So they've got here 1 mark for identification of an error, for example, including negative numbers, or there's no differentiation between negative and positive values. And then the correction would be to have an appropriate action, for example, and after the input box, put a decision box to reject negative numbers. Yeah, so that would be a good one. Yeah, very strange question, that one. Yeah, and like I said, I don't like vague questions like that. It's a bit vague. Vagueness I don't like. Right, now we're on to databases. So this question here, shop that sells books has set up a new database called Booklist to a bookstore. And part of the table is given here. We've got Capno, we've got title, we've got fiction, author, paperback, price, and stock level. State the number of records in this part of the database table. So can you remember what a record is in a database table? What do you think? How many records are there? And can you remember what a record is? Oh, hello from India. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, this is IGCSE. That's what we're doing, IGCSE. And this is one that is quite, this exam board is Cambridge, which is very popular in India. And this is a exam board. This paper is from the Indian sitting, actually. So, yeah. Yeah, so the record is a list of data used in the database. Well, it's basically a record is each row in this. So each row is BK1, BK2, etc. All that row. It won't let me draw on here, but yeah. The way I remember it is record and row both start with the letter R. It's literally anything to help me remember these things. Anyway, state the number of records. We just count how many rows there are. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So be careful with this as well. Yeah, so good, lots of right answers there. Because what they will do, and you can see that we start with 1, then we go up to 7, 8, and so someone's going to put 31. Someone is not going to count them, and they're going to think, oh, it goes up to 31, and cat no, and yeah. It's like, no, don't do that. Always count them by hand. Remember, you got this. You don't want to be doing, a reset of this exam. Try and prove it to the. Anyway, give the name of the field that would be used for the primary key. So what would we use for the primary key and why? And the next question is why. So which field, remember a field is a column. Yeah, don't use the header. That's correct. Yeah, don't use the header. We don't use the header up here. Which field would we use as the primary key and why? Yeah, good. Yeah, a couple of right answers there. It's cat no. So it is that first one there. And the reason being is it's unique for every row or unique for every record. And you can see that there's no repeating values. So you can either say it's unique or you can say there's no repeating values. Whereas we couldn't use, for example, the fiction the fiction column, because there's repeated yes and no's. And even in the author, there's repeated names here. Price, again, repeated values. We always want something that's going to be completely unique. Why do exam boards look for that one specific word? Unique, you mean? Because it is really important. And if you are going to carry on and do some more sort of higher level computing exams or study, doesn't even have to be exams, the fact that the primary key is unique really matters because you have lots of tables that are joined together. So yeah, they're just kind of preparing you for future study. All right, next question is we need to complete the table to identify the most appropriate data type for each field based on the data. So sometimes they'll actually tell you what the data types are, but here's the table that I prepared earlier. I've been so well in advance for this one. Anyway, which data type, remember, think about it like as a variable in Python. What would you use for Python? And it's probably almost going to be the same for database. Cat no title, fiction, price. And the choices are, now I haven't given you the choices, but I'll tell you what the choices are. They're text, number, Boolean, real, or integer. So it's almost just like Python. Yes, there's some good answers here. They prefer you to use the word text or alphanumeric rather than string, but I can't see them not giving you a mark for that if you use string, but their preference is text. And we just have to kind of play their game, really. So yeah, capno, that would be, because it's got any letters in it, it has to be text. So capno would be text. Title is text as well, because it's got lots of text, funnily enough. Fiction is yes or no, so that's going to be a Boolean. So I know technically yes and no are strings, but really what they're after is you seeing that that's a Boolean. And then price has a decimal place, so that's going to be a real. They don't use float. Float is Python specific. So yeah, that's what they're going to have. And if we look at the mark scheme, I've got the mark scheme here. You can see it's text or alphanumeric, Boolean, text, Boolean, real. Now, a couple of other questions here just to do with some SQL. So they want you to work out what the output of this SQL is. And then we've got to complete the SQL for this as well. So with the first one, we're actually pulling out, for part D, we're pulling out the real data for this. So this question here, part D, you've got to pull out the real data, and then we're going to complete the SQL statement to display all titles by the author B. Penn. Okay. Let's see. Oh, sorry about this. Ugh. There you go. Hopefully you can read that now. True, false is a bool, but they want you to just get the thinking part of it. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah. So this exam board, they just prefer you to use text rather than string. It's just their thing. So, but like I said, it's unlikely that you'll lose marks if you put string. But we just have to kind of learn their preferences when you're sitting for that exam board. Right. So I'm just going to go quiet while you do these questions. Okay, so some good answers there. Just give you another minute. Can you hear my neighbour's dog barking? Can you hear my cat snoring? She's sat near me, snoring away. Good. Good. All right, so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these into my my whiteboard, and then I can got my yeah, there we go. I'm going to put this onto the whiteboard, and then I can actually write on it. All right, so when we're doing these questions, we just do it by process of elimination from the SQL statement or SQL statement, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I use both interchangeably. So we're going to select the CatNo, and so that's this column here, the title and the author. So we're going to forget everything else, but we're going to use that in our selection. So we have the stock level of 0, basically. So we're just going to look to see where stock level, this one here, where is it 0? So we've got this one, this row here, and we've got this row here. There isn't any others, is there? No. So when we write our answer, we must put the columns in the correct order. So CatNo is BK08, The Princess's Story. And then the author is B Pen. And then the next one is BK31, Networking for Beginners. Obviously, your handwriting is going to be much neater than mine. Don't do what I'm doing and writing it really neat, really badly. And that is A Smith. Okay. Don't put commas or anything like that. Just put blanks. Just leave a little bit of space. Yeah, don't put columns. Don't put commas. That's what I'm trying to say. They don't like it. And that could. I mean, I've seen a real exam paper where a student had paid for their exam paper to look at their exam paper marking. They sent it to me and say, "Can you check it?" And they marked them down because they put commas in between each of these fields here. So this is how petty they can be. I sent it back and said, I think that's too harsh a marking and I would challenge it. So yeah. Okay, and then the final next one is complete the SQL statement to display all the titles by the author B Pen. So it's select titles, because that's the column that we've got here. It's select title from, and then it's a table name, which is book list. In fact, I'll write it here. Select title from book list, where, and then it is all, what are we looking for? All titles by the author B Pen. So it's where author equals B Pen. Now you could put as well single quotes, double quotes is fine as well, and also you can use something called like. Now I didn't cover like in the lessons, but you can put like. Like is only used for string, so you could put where author like B Pen as well without that. Okay. And I'll just show you the mark scheme. And there's the mark scheme there. Is the IGCSE harder on practical work like physics, chemistry, or is it just... So there's no practical work in IGCSEs. IGCSEs are usually done in either private schools here in the UK. I mean, in fact, the exam board that we're doing here for IGCSE, Cambridge, 95% of the people who take IGCSEs are not in the UK, even though they do it all here. But anyway, it's the whole point of them is that they don't have any practicals. You might have to do practical work in your preparation, but there's no practical exam, and it's the same for computer science. There's no coursework. Doesn't quote mean strings and single quote mean character? At GCSE level, we can use either. They don't care. So yeah. Okay, Now we've got a next question, which we'll finish this through. We've got 5 minutes, but I think what we'll do is we'll do this whole question and then, so we might overrun a little bit. So I'm sorry about that. And then we'll leave the 15-mark question for tomorrow. Variables X, Y, and Z are used in a program. X stores a whole number, Y stores a decimal number, and Z stores a flag that can be set to true. Write pseudocode statements to declare X, Y, and Z. So for this one, what I might do is I might just do this at the moment. I'll show you, and then in fact, what I'll do is I'll show you the first one and then you can do the others. Okay. So for part A, we're going to declare X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to declare, in fact, I'm just going to make that slightly thinner. There we go. So I'm going to declare the first one, which is X. So I'm going to do declare X. And that is an integer because it stores a whole number. So X is an integer. So can you do Y and Z for me? Declare Y stores a decimal, Z stores a flag that can be set to true or false. Another thing actually about IGCSEs is they're generally about the same as a GCSE because they have to be for the UK government to accept them as an equivalent. So they're not usually either harder or easier, they're just slightly different because there's no coursework. So it's about the same as a GCSE. Yeah, so the next one is declare Y, and that is a number with a decimal place. So that's going to be a real. It's not a float. A float is Python specific. Well, it's sometimes floats using other ones, but yeah. And then Z is a Boolean because it's true or false. So yeah, there's our next one there. Then our next question, it says the function same returns true if the value of A is the same as the value of B, when B is rounded to the nearest whole number, and false otherwise. So write pseudocode to define the function, call the function with X and Y, and return Z. So if you remember the difference between a function and a procedure, a function is one that returns a value, so we're returning true or false, and a procedure doesn't return a value. So the equivalents are print in Python would be a procedure, and input would be a function. Anyway, I'm going to do this. They don't tend to ask questions on functions, but I'm going to do this one for you. So we're going to declare the function. So it's just function same, because that's what it's called. We've got the first parameter, which is an integer. And then we've got the second parameter, which is a real. And we're going to round that, but we're going to return an integer. And then all we have to do is say we can round A. So we're going to put, I don't know, A equals round A to 0 decimal places. And then we're going to say if A is the same as, and it's 1 equals, not 2. Python is 2 equals, but pseudocode is is 1, then return true, else return false. And I'll just move that up a bit because I'm running out of space. And then we need end if, and then end function. So it does sound complicated to start with, but actually all you're doing is just an if statement. There's no loop or anything like that. We're using round. So you will need to try and learn the syntax for functions in pseudocode. But yeah. And then we need to call the function. So that's the last thing that we need to do. So to call a function, what you do is you do, I'll do it over here. We say z equals same x, y. Because it's returning a value, and this is where we're going to capture the return value here. Is it possible to still get a grade 8 even if you only get 5 or so marks from the 50-mark question? Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who really struggle with a 50-mark question, and I would say you're probably better off, if you're really struggling with it, just do a little bit of sort of at the beginning of it, and I will go through it in the lessons really thoroughly, and here as well. So you should be able to get a few marks for it, but I would say try not to stress about it too much and then get more marks for everything else. So yeah, you need about 75% to get a grade 8, something like that. So, and I don't think it even hit 90%, 80% to get a 9 actually. I can't remember the exact percentages because they keep changing it each year. It's very annoying. How does the marking, what do you mean? So, sorry, it says you're doing 9 to 1. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Can you finish off that? We'll just finish off this question while you're going to put that in the chat. There is one thing here, and it says state the difference between defining and calling a function. So we've defined the function here where we say this is the code for the function. We're setting it up, and then when we're calling it, we're actually running the code. So when you define a function, you're not actually ever running it. You're saying here it is in case you want to run it, and then calling it is actually running it. Okay. So I've finished this. We'll do the 50-mark question tomorrow. I won't spend all the time on it though. If you get 88% above, is that a 9? Yeah, I can't remember the exact percentages, but let me have a look. I can get that for you. That, like I said, they do keep changing it, and the winter sittings tend to have a lower threshold because they tend to make those papers slightly harder. But don't worry about that, because that means that if you are taking it in the winter sitting, that you what am I trying to say? That because it's a harder paper, the pass marks and the grade thresholds are lower. Let me just have a look. So if we go by what happened this summer, the grade thresholds, in fact, I can get those for you. Hold on, give me 1 sec. I can get the grade thresholds for you for the summer. And you do need to do the latest grade thresholds because they do change them. So this was the summer UK papers. You had to get 120 marks, and the AX was the UK papers, by the way. So we'll stick with the UK. I don't know whereabouts they did the other papers, but basically 120 divided by 150 is 80%. So yeah, so you needed to get 80% to get a 9 last summer, and then 107 out of 150 to get a grade 8, which is 71.3, so 72%. yeah, 72%. Oh, where's it gone? 72% to get a grade 8. So that means you could drop 43 marks and still get a grade 8. You have fun. Yeah, have fun. You're going to a brass band. Nice. That's great. So yeah, this is the highest they've had it for quite some time. So they have had lower pass marks. If we have a quick look at other years, the pass marks have been different. So if we have a look at, for example, summer 2024, they had, instead of 120 to get that, they had 116. Although that paper was 126. So it just depends on how hard or easy the paper is. But I would aim for 80% for a grade 9 and then about 75% for a grade 8, and you should be able to get that. Okay. All right then. So great to see you all. We'll do the 50-mark question tomorrow plus others as well. And have a good evening. See you tomorrow. Take care.